to the Trinity. And
Our son lives in
but I tried to raise you with
Yeah.
Let me go over a little bit about what we did last week. Pointed out some of the sources that I used in order to reach a target date in which Jesus would have been born. And I found this book that I made that spreadsheet longer from. This is actually a picture, a photo that I took of my screen because you couldn't print that out. And then I reproduced that chart. That's just a basic chart that comes from historic evidence where other people are trying to find out when Jesus was born. Now this is an article that I printed out which addresses weighing up the evidence for, quote, historical Jesus. And if you read that, it really gets into some negative stuff, like we can't really prove anything about Jesus, so it gets into mythology. It calls Jesus a myth that's been created. So there is reason to find a date that would actually be Jesus' birthday because it makes him real. It keeps him from being a myth.
Well, you had your celebration on Jesus' birthday.
I know.
That's so cool. I thought about you.
And last Saturday I pointed out that the first Hebrew calendar that I used showed May 27th and 9 BCE as a Saturday, which would be a good beginning point from which I could enter it into my astrological program. But that calendar said it was the 44th day of the counting of the Omer. And I have since found that that is completely wrong. But it was the 25th of May. And the 25th of May was a Saturday, not the 27th. And it was the 49th day of the counting of the Omer. Now, as I went to enter the information, and this is that calendar, as I went to enter the information into my computer program, I realized that I had already entered something in there as a possible birthday for Jesus. And this is that chart. And if you look at this chart, you can see that it doesn't look any more special than any of the charts that we have. And that's one of the questions that I've asked is look at your chart, and we passed out charts of Abraham Lincoln and Andy Griffith and Marilyn Monroe and Charles Manson, and everybody's got a chart based on their birth date, birth time, birthplace. And the question was, which one of these charts would you think would cause a bunch of magi in Persia to plan a trip of 1,220 miles, which would take at least minimum of 2 months? And they would have to have supplies, and they'd have to stop and camp the whole way. They'd have to go over mountains and deserts. What chart do you see that has been printed out from everybody that's come here and all the celebrities we've looked at that would be special? And this one right here that I did is from a theory that people had that Jesus was born in 4 BC. Okay, that's incorrect because Herod was already dying and wouldn't have issued any kind of death sentence. The census that came was at 2 BC, and that was the year that Herod died. So none of that works out, but there are people that are trying to figure it out. So that's something I had gotten some information once before and I entered it, and that just doesn't look special. It really doesn't. It's a 6 p.m. birth time, and nothing about that is impressive. And look pretty ordinary. Now this is the chart that I got when I entered it in from May 27th, which is 0 - 8 Julian calendar, or 9 BCE. This immediately displays a bold red triangle. Can everybody see that? However, it includes the modern planets of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And this computer program that I have allows me to choose what orbs and what aspects are displayed, the range that makes something an aspect in the natal chart. And in this chart that I first saw, the red triangle is formed by 6 of the 7 visible orbs, along with the 2 most important imaginary points, the eastern horizon and the midheaven. There are 4 points conjunct, which is an aspect of 4 other points that are conjunct, which is opposed to 2 other points. So if you look on the left, you see that eastern horizon is a bold line that's between the 12 and the 1. You've got Mars is above it, you've got Moon below it, and you've got Pluto below that. There's 4 orbs conjunct. A point is included in that. Up at the top, you have that bold line with the arrow at the top. That's the midheaven. You got Venus, which is right next to it. You got Sun, which is right next to that, and you got Mercury, which is right next to that. So all of those are within what is a conjunction. This is a mega conjunction. That's like a stellium that we talked about last week. And then over on the right, that's the descendant line, which is opposite the ascendant, and it's got Uranus in the 7th house, and it's got Saturn in the 6th house. So those are what is visible to the naked eye. And you see there's 4 at the top, 4 to the east, and then 2 to the west. J is supposed to be Leo. I don't know why it didn't get that one. Remember that from last week we said that the red lines reflect challenge and confrontation, blending and compromise. And it's from the presence of red line that one is forced to act. Thus growth is achieved by doing rather than sitting. All right, here's the same chart that the Magi would have produced without the outer planets, the modern planets. And it gets down where there is a triangle, and then you see the chart on the left is all aspects, which are major and minor aspects. And then the right chart is if you just take away the minor aspects and look at the major aspects, you've got a big, bright, red triangle. And these both are only showing the visible planets. And this is, I've adjusted the date to May 25th, which is the Sabbath. So that is the chart for the Sabbath birth on May 25th, which is the 49th day of counting of the Omer. And the Magi, as court astrologers and priestly advisors to the king, would have been doing yearly projections as part of their normal priestly duties. They would have been thus looking at the planetary alignments at least a year away from their coming into placement. And we see this practice in the Farmer's Almanac today and in centuries past, where advanced viewing leads to being guided to preparation. Seeing this advanced awareness of this coming alignment, which they would have attributed to a most important father-son birth to come. Now you see the father is Saturn and Mars is the sun. This is how they would have known to remember Jewish prophecy. Being led by the Holy Spirit, they would have tested their findings before asking permission from the king of Persia to travel a great distance and officially recognize that coming birth in Judea, which was a Roman holding. Possibly an angel of the Lord appeared and advised them. Once they wandered onto that, they would be kept on that path and a developing understanding. And again, they were And if you look up Magi, according to Strong's, is from a holy caste of Midians, which is in this Assyrian, Persian, Babylonian area. And they could have been descendants from the Jews in Babylon who were freed by the Persians, who rather than go to Jerusalem, went to Persia to serve Cyrus the Great. So they're the descendants of those, and they're holy priests, and they have a skill in astrology that is to be used in service to the king. That early preparation would have then led them to answer Herod in a confusing manner when they heard Herod ask to know the exact time the star appeared. So, I mean, that's one of those questions that we see in the Bible, in the Matthew readings for Christmas, that Herod called them secretly to the side and asked what was the exact time the star appeared. Well, if you're a magi and you're wanting to know the exact time the star appeared, you know, maybe that you hear that question as, when did you first come upon this chart? So they could have said it was a year ago when we were doing our advanced projections of where the planets would be. We found this a year ago, rather than saying the exact time that we cast the chart for was 2 days ago. But he said, you know, a year ago is when we first saw it in advance. So that would be why Herod would order everyone under the age of 2 in Bethlehem to be killed, because he was trying to rid the competition for his lands. And he would have heard them say maybe 2 days ago, but we saw it a year ago, so just to be on the safe side, let's go back a year before they came to visit. And he was probably told, rather than sitting there looking out the window waiting for the Magi to come back, he had other things to do. His life was more important than waiting on these people. Plus you had all kinds of people who were claiming to be the Messiah. So it's just another one that, you know, when he's getting the reports of what happened a year ago, his court reporters are saying, well, there was those visitors they had from Persia, those priests, who said that they were here to see the Messiah. He goes, okay, that's a 2-year reign. That's a year ago they visited, and they said they had seen the star a year before, so let's kill everything that's 2 years old. So that would be why Herod would do that. But if you read the scriptures, again, you don't see the time that's in between the words. So the words read so quickly that it's like all of this happened in one day. And you know, that they went and they saw it and then they left another way, and it's like we don't realize that there's time that's going by in between the words. So they would have truthfully answered a year ago in Persia. That answer would have led Herod to think the new Messiah was 1 year old. This will then explain why he would order all children born in Bethlehem under the age of 2 to be killed. Herod did not realize the Magi had not informed him of the precise day and time the Messiah was born according to their calculations. It is impossible to see how Herod, in a society where many were looking for, with others claiming to be, the Messiah, was not counting the minutes after the Magi left him, waiting breathlessly for them to come back and tell him what he really wanted to know: where is the child I must kill? The order by Herod leads us to see how the advisors reminded him of the Magi visit a year after their visit. Now, if you look at the T-square that's formed, and last week we went over some of the major configurations in a T-square and grand cross and a trine, grand trine, and a yod were the four. This is a T-square. This is a major configuration. And the central points are the opposition at the bottom, which is Saturn opposite Mars, but Mars is conjunct the ascendant, so Saturn is opposition, the ascendant too. That's the father-son axis. Well, his star is the sun, it's the ego. And that's at 1 degree Gemini, which is close enough to form a square, 90-degree angle to both Mars and the ascendant and to Saturn. So you've got this formation of a T-square. It's very important. And the challenge of a square, a T-square or a grand cross, especially a grand cross where you have an opposition square, another opposition, that it's like a roller coaster that just keeps, or the Ferris wheel that just keeps going around. What goes up goes down, and then you just can't really become even because something else is pulling you. This is a challenge aspect that is pulling the ego into confrontation. And when the 12th house is a house of sacrifice, the sun is sacrificing, and the 6th house is a house of work and service, is working for the Father, sacrificing of the self. So there's this point of compromise, and the compromise is never settled because it's always square his own personal ego in the house of public spotlight. So he's always having to do something that goes to the Father. And this is the symbolism that the Magi saw. Saturn opposite Mars is basically a father-son axis. The Hebrew word for God is El, with Ugarit and Levant language using the same name in reference to Saturn, the father of heaven. The Hebrew spelling of El is, and those are the Hebrew letters, where Lamed is the glyph of the letter that matches, and that's a U, so that really doesn't show you anything. But look over on the chart where Saturn is right, that it looks like the letter Lamed.
On the right, between the 7th and 6th house.
It's in the 6th house, right below the
Sixth
line,
house
that is the
below.
descendant line. There is the glyph. It's actually a symbol that shows the scythe. So it's shaped like the scythe, which cuts down the wheat. It is the reaper. Saturn is known as the greater malefic because it reaps what has been sown. It is the tester. It's the one that gives you the test